They opened the forbidden gate, and the universe started watching humanity. No one agreed on who first discovered the gate, only that it had always been there, folded into the fabric of a dead system at the edge of mapped space like a scar the universe had forgotten how to heal. It did not respond to probes, scans, or the oldest languages of physics. It simply waited, blacker than black, surrounded by warning beacons left by civilizations that no longer existed in any record except radiation echoes. Then humanity arrived, not because they were chosen, not because they were worthy, but because they were curious in the same way fire is curious about oxygen. The first human expedition called it a relic. The second called it a puzzle. The third stopped calling it anything at all and began building tools that could ask it questions. On the 93rd attempt, the gate answered. It opened not with light or sound, but with absence, like reality itself inhaling. Space bent inward, folding like paper soaked in ink, and every instrument within a light year went silent for exactly 7 seconds. When they returned, the universe was no longer alone in its observation of humanity. Something was watching back. At first it was subtle. Deep space telescopes began detecting background patterns that resembled attention, structured interference in cosmic microwave noise, as if the universe had developed a gaze. Then came the signals, fragments of mathematics that described human history more accurately than human historians, pulses that predicted decisions before they were made. Echoes of Earth's future scattered across star systems that had no reason to know Earth existed. Panic spread through the galactic communities that humanity had only just begun to contact. The message was always the same. We see you because the gate saw you first. Humanity, however, did not panic the way others expected. They adapted. They argued. They weaponized the gate's coordinates into navigation algorithms and turned fear into propulsion. If the universe was watching, then humanity would give it something worth observing. Ships were built not just for travel, but for defiance. Vast constructs of alloy and will, stitched together with the stubborn belief that observation implied possibility, not judgment. The gate became a pilgrimage site and a battlefield of ideas. Was it a doorway, a filter, or a mirror? Then came the first return signal from inside the gate. It was not alien. It was human. A distorted transmission from a ship that had never entered it, speaking in voices that matched crews long dead. They spoke of a place where stars were not objects but consequences, where time behaved like a living predator, and where every decision humanity had ever made existed simultaneously in infinite contradiction. They claimed the gate was not an entrance but an eye, an organ of perception belonging to something too vast to name, something that did not observe the universe, but defined it by observing. And now it had chosen humanity as its focal point. As fleets gathered around the gate, tensions fractured alliances across civilizations. Some demanded destruction of the structure. Others insisted it was a divine threshold. Humanity did neither. Instead, they did what they had always done when confronted with the unknown. They reached out. The first human message sent into the gate was not a question nor a demand, but a declaration. If you are watching, then watch closely. The reply came instantly, not in words, but in reality rewriting itself. Across every inhabited world within range, skies flickered. Entire constellations shifted position as if someone had adjusted a lens. And for a brief moment, every being capable of thought saw Earth, not as it was, but as it could be. As it had been. As it would become in every possible timeline simultaneously. And in that overwhelming vision, one truth became undeniable. Humanity was not being observed as subjects. They were being studied as authors. And the universe, for the first time since its birth, had begun to fear what the story might become. The sky did not return to normal. Not immediately. For hours after the vision, every civilization within observation range reported the same phenomenon. Stars subtly shifting position when no gravitational force accounted for it. Light itself seemed to hesitate, as if unsure which version of reality it was meant to illuminate. On Earth, oceans rose and fell in mathematically perfect rhythm with no detectable cause, as though the planet had become synchronized with something far larger than orbit or tide. And in orbit around the gate, humanity's fleet remained frozen, caught between retreat and refusal. Inside the command vessel Astor conquered, silence had become its own language. Admiral Cale Rourke stared at the projection of the gate, It no longer looked like a structure. It looked like an attention span, a focus, a point where something vast and unseen had decided to look too closely at one specific corner of existence. They didn't just show us possibilities, one scientist whispered behind him. They showed us weight. Every choice has mass now. Rourke didn't look away from the gate. Or it always did. We just never had anything big enough to measure it. A new signal arrived before anyone could respond. This one was not from the gate, it came from within the fleet. A ship that had not passed through, not been exposed, not even drifted close enough to justify interference, began broadcasting a repeating sequence of structured thought patterns. Not language, not code. Something older than both, an arrangement of intention. When decoded, it translated into a single sentence. You have been noticed. Then the ship went dark. No explosion. No failure. No distress signal. It simply stopped being describable by instruments, as if the concept of ship had been edited out of reality. Panic finally began to crack through discipline. Not loud panic, but the quiet kind that spreads through trained minds when certainty breaks. Engineers rechecked systems that could no longer confirm their own measurements. Pilots stared at navigation charts that now contained routes that led to places that should not exist, yet still produced gravitational pull. And then the gate opened again. Wider this time. Not like a door, like an eye fully focusing. A structure of impossible geometry unfolded within it. Layers upon layers of shifting frameworks, each one containing what looked like civilizations built from light, memory, and probability. Entire starfields folded into each other like pages turning too fast to read. And something spoke. Not into radios, not into minds, but into meaning itself. Humanity is unstable. The words were not heard. They were understood everywhere at once. Every human, every alien observer, every system capable of awareness felt the statement as if it had always been true and was only now being remembered. The voice continued. You do not remain in states. You transition. You refuse equilibrium. A pause, not of silence, but of observation. This is unprecedented. Earth responded in the only way it knew how. It sent a message back, not through diplomacy channels, not through unified government protocols, but through every transmitter that could still function. We adapt. The gate paused. For the first time, the watching universe hesitated. Then something unexpected happened. The stars behind the gate blinked, not dimmed, not exploded. They blinked like eyes reacting to surprise, and across every observing civilization, a realization spread like wildfire. The thing behind the gate was not alone either. It was part of something larger, something that also watched it. And humanity had just become visible to both. The realization did not arrive like information. It arrived like collapse. Across 300 civilizations, scientific instruments began failing not from overload, but from contradiction. A sensor would report one truth, then instantly replace it with another equally valid truth. Entire physics departments went silent as equations began producing multiple outcomes that all insisted they were correct. At the center of it all, the gate remained open, and now it was no longer singular. It had multiplicity. Within its structure, new layers appeared, like reflections inside reflections, each one showing a different version of the same universe. In one, Earth was already a galactic empire. In another, it had been destroyed before developing fire. In another, humanity had never existed at all. Yet something unmistakably human still built cities among the stars. Admiral Rourke felt it before he understood it. We're being compared, he said quietly. No one asked what he meant. They already knew. The voice returned, but it was no longer calm. It was divided. Observation has produced divergence. Humanity is not one outcome. It is many competing outcomes occupying a single point. The gate shuddered. Space around it began to fracture into layered timelines, each one pressing against the others like glass panes under strain. Fleets on the edge of the anomaly reported seeing ships that did not exist in their own reality. Some fired, some saluted, some simply watched themselves die. And then Earth spoke again, not through command, not through leadership, but through consensus. Billions of transmissions synchronized without coordination. forming a single collective response. We are still deciding what we are. That was the moment everything changed. The gate did something it had never done before. It listened, and beyond it, whatever had been watching it shifted attention. For the first time since the beginning of recorded observation, the watchers behind the watchers became aware of disturbance in their own layer of reality. A ripple passed through the structure of existence itself. The gate's voice softened. Not weaker, more uncertain. If you are undecided, then you are not yet finalized. Unfinalized systems are unpredictable. Unpredictability is, it stopped, because something new had appeared beyond the gate. Not a ship, not a civilization, not even a structure. A question. A living question, formed out of collapsing probabilities, pressing against the gate from the other side, like a mind realizing it has been looked at. And it was shaped like humanity. Not biologically, not physically, but conceptually, a version of humanity that had evolved under infinite observation, where every choice was recorded, every possibility preserved, every mistake never allowed to vanish. A perfect humanity, a completed humanity, and it was staring back. The gate finally spoke the word it had been avoiding. Recursive, Admiral Rourke whispered. What does that mean? A scientist answered without looking up. It means we're not the first ones to be watched. Pause. And we're not the last. The gate began to close. Slowly. Not because it was destroyed, but because something outside it had decided the experiment was unstable and humanity, unfinished, contradictory, unpredictable humanity, was suddenly the most important anomaly in existence. As the opening shrank, the final transmission leaked through one last time, fractured and urgent. Do not complete the pattern, or you will no longer be able to escape it. Then silence. The gate vanished. No explosion, no trace, only absence. But humanity did not forget, because now they knew the most dangerous truth of all. They were not being watched to be judged. They were being watched to see if they could become something even the watchers feared. And somewhere beyond the edge of reality, something began taking notes.